Hey everyone, and welcome back to Clara's Chronicles, where today is boring, so let's get exploring. I'm fully recovered from the flu, and as I mentioned in my last video, this would be the next article I was going over, and let me tell you, it is completely insane. This is from the Omaha Daily Bee, September 17th of 1905, and it is titled, quote unquote, "I will die before I wed," he said, and after dying, he came back to life and wed. The strange case that puzzles physicians. So let's get right into it. I don't want to waste any time. Let me make my thumbnail smaller. Oh, before I do, here's this little image and it says, "I must die first. I'll come back." So let's go ahead and start. Zoom in here. Make sure I can make it as big as possible. And upon request, I will be using my cursor. If we can see, yeah, we can see my cursor on here to make sure that you can all track along with where I'm reading, since I know it's a lot and sometimes you can get lost and then it's hard to keep track of where I'm at. Okay, it says, and again, apologies if I don't pronounce everything. This is located in Wales and yeah, so it's hard to pronounce everything. It says, Lloyd Grenwithga of Ystradivodwg, Wales, died rather than wed, keeping his word and the oath that he took many years ago, and coming back to life, he has wedded Editha Knedelfauer. I might just say G and K, just to make it easier because the names appear multiple times. Rather than violate his word, the man died, or physicians declared him dead, and after 2 days of death, when the family was beginning the preparations for his burial, he suddenly recovered, sat up in his coffin, and greeted the mourners. This is insane. The strangest part of the entire business is that G declares he really died, and that by dying, he absolved himself from his oath and was free to wed. The case has attracted the attention of the medical authorities of Wales and even of England, and the great medical journals of London are devoting much space to the discussion of the alleged phenomenon of death produced by direct power of the will. Spiritualists and other cults of the like see in Ystradivodwg case a support for their contentions. But over and above it all, there is a romance, which is one of the strangest ever told. Next paragraph is titled Student of the Occult. G was the son of well-to-do parents, well-educated, and a graduate of the manual training school at Ystradivodwg. Hopefully I'm saying that right, I'm so sorry. Afterwards, studying at Cambridge and graduating with honors, he was graduated in an engineering specialty which he pursued diligently, although his entire turn of mind was in a different direction. He studied at odd times the occult sciences of the East, and on his stolid, materialistic Welsh mind, these studies made a deep and lasting impression. He believed them. He even practiced them. There was a time in Ystradivodwg, a girl named Eileen McGuinness, whose father was an Irish miner, and with this pretty saucy, vivacious maid. It's so crazy that the word saucy comes up in 1905, and we like to act like it's slang, like, oh, they have a saucy personality. They were using it back then, too. Saucy, vivacious maid of Aaron, the handsome, heavy Welsh mining engineer, fell in love. Her father was in charge of the loading of coal ships and the transference of coal to the docks and yards. G was the engineering expert in charge of the works. At first it seemed as if the heavy, handsome, strong young Welshman had a chance, but eventually she rejected him and married a young Irish officer of a merchant ship. And it was then that G took his strange oath. His fellows were twitting him about marriage. He arose from the table angrily. Next paragraph titled, Vows solemnly, quote unquote, death first. Quote, "I'll never get married until after I am dead," quote, he declared solemnly. The crowd roared, believing he intentionally had perpetrated a bull, but the Welshman strode away seriously. And they, recalling his beliefs in certain Eastern religions, wondered if there was anything back of his oddly worded retort. The vow was taken 14 or 15 years ago. The friends do not remember which, and during all that period, G had little to do with womankind, except those women that he met at meetings of some society for research into the religions of the East, of which he was an earnest member. He attended meetings in London and once traveled to Benares to consult with students or priests. Naturally, among the stolid, unimaginative Welsh people, there was some gossip concerning the strange beliefs of the young mining engineer, but he still was popular in Ystradi Vodwit. And among the workmen at the mines, of which he was supervisor, he prospered in his profession, being studious and hard-working, and he cultivated himself in other directions, becoming known as a writer of force and an original thinker. Next paragraph, titled, Meets His Fate on the Water. About a year ago, the man fell desperately, passionately in love with Editha Cnadelphower. This article's not making it easy on me. Daughter of a small manufacturer. She was a girl of rare beauty, dark, lissom, and fearless, who especially loved the water, and it was while rowing on the Usk above Cardiff that G first met the girl. Ooh, this part is so romantic, by the way. She was with a party of friends in a small rowboat, and one of them, recognizing the young engineer as he rowed by, hailed him and bade him join the party at a moonlight picnic party on the banks of the river. Can you imagine how beautiful that is? How could you not fall in love with any person you have a conversation with at a moonlight picnic? Am I right? It was there that they became acquainted, and it is declared to have been a case of love at first sight. The girl, scarcely 20 years old, fell desperately in love with the serious, handsome fellow, but her passion was mild compared with the storm that swept his heart. Immediately afterward, the man, without warning, asked for a long leave of absence and departed for India. He had sought every opportunity to see the girl. He had paid her the most marked attentions, and one evening, amid the commonplace surroundings of her home, he told her a story which started her beautiful eyes from her pretty face in astonishment and fright. Passionately, he told her of his love for her, and then calmly, and as if speaking of everyday matters, he told her that he had sworn an oath never to marry until he had died. The girl, abashed and ashamed because she had confessed her love and permitted him to kiss her in the first ecstasies of her joy, shrank from him. And then, growing indignant and fired by her indignation, she demanded an explanation, and got one such as never before girl had heard. The man calmly informed her that he intended to die, to remain dead for a period, then return to life and wed her. Isn't that every guy saying to every woman out there? He left for India, leaving the girl to weep and wonder whether he was crazy. Let me take a sip of coffee. This is a long one. A few weeks ago, G, pale and much more slender than he had been, returned to Ystradi Vodwit. His first act was to call upon Miss Cnadelphower. What he said to her, no one knows, but he left her aunt, found her hysterical and weeping, frightened and clinging to a chair for support. G went from there to the engineers' club, where he ate dinner alone and in silence. The waiter who served him noticed that he ordered the lightest and simplest of dishes. Later, he strode into the smoking room, and standing inside the doorway, said quietly, "Well, goodbye, fellows." "Going away again, G?" asked one. "And just home at that. Whither away this time?" "I'm going on a long journey. I will never see you again." Several of the men sprang to their feet. "What's the trouble, old man?" asked one. "Nothing. I will die tonight." He spoke calmly and quietly, and the men sat as if Daxed by surprise. Then some tried to tell him he was foolish. A few feared he would kill himself. But I will return in a few days in a different form, and I hope to meet you all again. That night, G died. At least 4 physicians, an undertaker, and all his friends declared he died. He was found dead in bed, with a happy smile upon his face, a smile as if of anticipation. Next paragraph, mourned as dead by girl. Miss Kindelfauer mourned with the others. She wept bitterly at the thought of his promise to return, but she had no faith. Preparations for the funeral were made, but because the girl told her strange story and the men related his remarks at the club, there was a wait. The undertaker started to perform his offices and started to inject a solution into his veins, but stopped. He declared there was no sign of life. The physicians, intensely interested in the curious case, made every test and even declared that hope was gone, as they vowed they saw signs of decomposition setting in. The death happened sometime on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. Friday afternoon G, or he who had been G, suddenly sat up in his coffin. Slowly the blood began to pulse through the veins. The heart action strengthened. The color came back, and before the frightened watchers could recover their senses, he asked feebly to be helped from the coffin. Like nothing, he's like, hey, help me out of this coffin. Freaking 2 days later. Then, seeming to revive with startling suddenness, he stood up and walked across the room. He remained for 2 hours in a half stupor. Then, arousing from that, he asked that he be taken to his rooms and permitted to dress, in order that he might call on the girl he loved. The girl was terribly afraid at first, of course, but her joy at regaining her lover, or getting a new one, whichever it is, was so great that she overcame her fear. Every woman ever, right? The man declares that he really died, that all of the old life went out of his body, and that he is a new being. And he believes that he can wed now and still keep his vow. One of the strangest things in connection with the entire thing is that he has forgotten everything he ever knew about the occult art. He does not know where he went when he visited India, and he does not even recognize those with whom he associated in the Society for Research. Whether this knowledge was taken away from him for fear he might use his secret of life and death again, he does not know. He only knows that he is the husband of one of the prettiest girls in Wales. This is the story. Isn't this story insane? And let's go ahead and look at some graphics. He's like, later, gentlemen, I'm off to die. It was just so funny to me when I found this article. Let me see if I can zoom out more and make sure that my thumbnail isn't covering it. So here's the images. This is the article. Whether it's true or not, no one can really know. It was posted in 1905. I don't know if it's just a story or a real case, but nonetheless, I thought it was a really fun article to read. And it's one of the craziest ones I've come across. What are your thoughts on this article? Okay, well, have a wonderful night. It's been a pleasure. I have so much fun doing this. I can't wait for the next ones. I usually leave you all on a cliffhanger for the next video, but I'm going through quite a few, as you can see my tabs, and I'm still selecting which one I want to do next. So I will see you guys soon. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Thank you. Bye.